Today, we're going to deconstruct the core ideas behind a book that got everyone talking, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. It's a deep dive into a set of principles designed to help us navigate the tough parts of, well, just being alive.
All right, so let's jump right in. But to really get a handle on the book's philosophy, we have to start in a pretty unexpected place. We need to talk about lobsters. Yes, you heard me right. Lobsters. As you'll see, they're actually central to the entire argument.
I know, it sounds a little strange, but the book's core argument is that the nervous system of this ancient crustacean actually holds a key to understanding us, our social structures, our brain chemistry, and even how we can find meaning in our lives. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack how the author uses biology, mythology, and psychology to build that exact framework. So here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with that curious lobster story. Then we'll see how that scales up to a universal principle of nature. From there, we'll explore the big philosophical stage that life plays out on. And finally, we'll see how the rules themselves are meant to fit into this whole picture. Okay, first up, the tale of two lobsters. We're diving into the neurochemistry of status. Let's really explore why this book kicks off with these creatures and their surprisingly complex and, frankly, pretty brutal social lives. You see, the book explains that lobsters are basically obsessed with status and position. They live down on the ocean floor and they all need a good home base, right? A secure territory with access to food. But the best real estate is always scarce, and that inevitably leads to conflict.
What's really fascinating, though, is that lobsters have evolved this surprisingly sophisticated system for sorting out these disputes. It's not just an immediate fight to the death. They actually follow a clear ladder of escalation. First, it's all posturing, a show of force with claws and even chemical sprays. If that doesn't settle things, they move on to pushing and shoving. Only if they're still evenly matched does it escalate to flipping, and, as a very last resort, mortal combat. The whole process is designed to establish who's dominant with as little damage as possible.
And here's the kicker. The outcome of these battles literally changes the lobster's brain. The winning lobster gets this surge of serotonin. It adopts what the book calls a cocky, strutting posture and becomes way more likely to fight again. But the loser? A totally different chemical cocktail. Its serotonin plummets, it gets all scrunched up and inhibited, and it's much less likely to challenge anyone for a while. Its brain has been rewired by defeat. This is where the book makes that deep evolutionary link. When scientists give a defeated lobster antidepressants, which boost serotonin, something amazing happens. It perks right up, stretches itself out, and will even go challenge a previous victor. The whole point is that the same fundamental neurochemistry that governs a lobster's confidence is still at play inside of us today.
So how does this whole lobster thing connect to a bigger idea? Well, the book argues it's a perfect example of a principle that's nearly universal in nature. This isn't just about crustaceans, it's about a fundamental structure of life itself.
This is what's called the dominance hierarchy, the pecking order. And the book argues that this is a basically permanent feature of the environment. Lobsters have been dealing with it for 350 million years. It's not some recent human invention like capitalism or communism. In fact, the book makes the pretty provocative claim that this structure is more ancient and fundamental than even trees are. Now, a crucial point here is that this ancient principle often leads to a brutally unequal distribution of resources. It's a pattern sometimes called the Matthew principle. From that biblical verse, to those who have, more will be given. Basically, a small number of individuals end up with the majority of the good stuff. The book notes you see this pattern in human societies too, where the richest 85 people have as much wealth as the bottom 3.5 billion. It's a winner-take-all dynamic that started long, long before us. So because this hierarchy is such a permanent feature of existence, we've evolved a part of our brain, a kind of ancient calculator, that's constantly tracking our social standing. It watches how others treat us and assesses our value. And this master control system then affects our posture, our mood, and our serotonin levels, just like it does for the lobster. Okay, so this biological reality of the hierarchy sets the stage for the book's core philosophical idea, that we experience the world not just as a collection of objects, but as a drama that's playing out between two fundamental forces. The book frames these forces as order and chaos, using the classic Taoist symbol of yin and yang. Order represents the world we know, our routines, social structures, familiar territory. The book describes this using symbolic, archetypal terms as masculine. Chaos, on the other hand, is the unknown, the unexpected, the tragic, but it's also the source of all new opportunities.
Symbolically, it's feminine, representing both creative potential and destructive force. The central argument here is that a good life isn't found by just staying entirely within the safety of order or by plunging recklessly into chaos. Instead, true meaning is found by balancing on the very line between the two. Walking that border is about being secure enough, but also being open enough to grow and transform. So, if life is this constant negotiation between the stability of order and the uncertainty of chaos, how do you successfully navigate it? Well, this is where the rules finally enter the picture.
The book itself is presented as an antidote to chaos, and these rules aren't just arbitrary commandments. They're proposed as practical, ordering principles to help you fortify yourself against the suffering and uncertainty that chaos inevitably brings into everyone's life. Let's just look at a few of these rules. They aren't just simple commands. They actually operate on different levels. You've got a physical one, like Rule 1, stand up straight. Then a psychological one, like Rule 4, compare yourself to who you were yesterday. That's about creating an internal sense of order, focusing on your own progress instead of the chaos of comparing yourself to everyone else. Then you have the ethical rules, like Rule 6, set your house in perfect order, and Rule 7, pursue what is meaningful. Each rule is really a tool for creating personal order.
And now we come full circle. Rule 1 isn't just about having good posture. It's a direct command to embody the physical stance of a winner. The idea is that by adopting this posture, you can signal to that ancient dominance calculator in your brain that you are competent and secure. And this can trigger the release of serotonin, making you feel more confident, which in turn makes you more likely to succeed, creating this amazing positive feedback loop.
Ultimately, the book's central message is that suffering is an inevitable part of life. That's chaos. But by taking individual responsibility to create order in your own mind and in your own life first, you can find the profound meaning needed to not only withstand that suffering, but to transcend it. So, as the book asks us to consider where we find meaning, it leaves us with a pretty potent question. Where are you standing?